Hi, Casey. I don't know if you can see me very good, but just quick, had some questions on period eight. A couple of your questions. Well, let's start with. Let me turn this down. Um, I think the first one was the rise of new conservatism. If you go back to the 20s and you even go back to the Gilded Age, the Republican Party was kind of it got its start in 1854, the Abolition Party. But during the Gilded Age, after the Civil War, it became a more of an economic party and kind of keep things as is party as far as the social standing. And in the Gilded Age, you could see that take place with laissez-faire, and it was deemed to be the party of the rich, hands off government, no government interference, and kind of let what happens economically happen. And the whole idea of social Darwinism and strong survive kind of thing. That goes into the 20s, even when the Republican Party runs the 20s and good times, the roaring 20s, and with the Great Depression in 29, we see this new thing, this new government action with the New Deal. And the New Deal has a coalition because even though it wasn't completely successful in getting America out of the Great Depression, I'm getting around to answer your question, by the way. It wasn't completely okay with getting America out of the Great Depression. World War One did, or World War II did that, but there was a New Deal coalition. In other words, there were a lot of groups and interest groups and loyal people to the government has our best intentions in mind, and that lasted even up through our period, which is 1945, 1950s. We even had a Republican president, Eisenhower, who was very moderate. And kind of a middle of the road president as far as, laissez-faire. He didn't go back to the old laissez-faire. He was very, very almost be considered almost democratic today. I mean, very middle of the road guy. And then you've got 60s presidents are all democratic, all democratic, all democratic. Then we have in 68, or actually 1960, this rise of this guy named Barry Goldwater. And Barry Goldwater was a senator from Arizona, and he talked about civil liberties and how America has lost its moral footing and moral compass, and how we need to move back to protecting people's rights. But more importantly, we need to go back to God, kind of thing, which leads in back to the neoconservative movement, which the 50s also sees the Great Awakening Part 3 or 4, whatever one you want to say. But the Great Awakening, where you have the evangelical Christians who are starting to attach themselves to the Republican Party. So a call for America to return to God in the 60s. And we also, moving into the 68 election, we have these people talking about return to self-sufficiency and pull yourself up by your bootstraps and no government action, which is totally against the New Deal of FDR and the Great Society of programs that were set forth by LBJ in the 60s. And so we're seeing that turn of a modern conservative movement, which Nixon is going to kind of bridge a gap between Goldwater, Nixon, and then the 80s is going to be the Reagan Revolution. And Ronald Reagan will take that to the next step, which is protect individual freedoms, but yet return to God, less government, lower taxes, strong military. And it's kind of that new, what you would consider a Republican today would be a Republican that was emerging in the 60s and the 70s. And of course, Reagan transforms the party in the 80s. Examples why they thought America was going to hell and getting away from its moral compass would be Roe versus Wade, and the abortion, for instance, would be an example of that, and the hippies and drug use and all that good stuff. So let me get off of that. The economy of the 60s. That was another question. The 60s, lots of spending, Great Society programs. 2, lots of war, Vietnam. and that leads to this thing that emerges in the late 1960s and early 1970s called stagflation. Now, stagflation is totally baffled economists because usually when wages go up, here we go, wages go up, prices, there we go. All right, prices go up with it. So both of them go up. Okay, people can afford it. Oh gosh, my thumbs. Okay, there we go. But when wages go down, prices go down. So think about milk. When my wages go up, wage prices of milk are probably going to go up. But when my wages go down, makes sense that prices go down. Affordability. That's what normally happens in capitalism and our economy. Well, in the 70s, we had a combination of stagflation, which meant we had runaway inflation, wages went down, and prices went up, both at the same time. And part of that was caused by Vietnam. Part of it was caused by social programs, which some of them were New Deal programs that are still around. Some of them were the Great Society programs, but more importantly, it was the spending on Vietnam. And so America's economy went into the you know what toilet. Also, add on top of that the oil crisis that was brought on by our support of Israel during the 1967 war and the 1973 war, but the OPEC embargo let our gas prices go through the roof. We ran out of gas, prices went up, demand we didn't have enough gasoline in America. And so by and large, we got into this situation where we didn't we lost our ability to control our destiny as far as prices. And one of the reason or with oil production, another reason why this went really down as well, see, we saw a guest back there. One of the reasons why this really had a problem as well was the fact that America was getting into that idea that maybe we weren't better. Maybe we were losing the Cold War. We just were losing in Vietnam. And so at this point in American history, the 70s, economically, it mirrored how we felt about ourselves. And that was not good. I think another thing you put up was Watergate. Watergate, let me simplify so I don't want to talk you to death over just a couple questions. I'm trying to think what else you put up there. Watergate, the 1972 election, Nixon won 1968, promised to get out of Vietnam, goes to the 72 election. We're still not out of Vietnam, so he's afraid he's going to lose. He gets this group of guys together called CREEP, the Committee to Re-elect the President. And he wants them to break into a office complex that holds the Democrats, Nixon's a Republican, steal the Democrat playbook for strategy for the election. Well, Nixon, unbeknownst to him, he ends up winning by a landslide in 1972. He didn't need to cheat. He didn't need their strategy. But his guys break in, and at least they could be loosely associated with Nixon. I mean, that he okayed it. Well, that's where the hubbub comes because these guys get caught. And a couple of Washington Post reporters, Woodward and Bernstein, break the story. Nixon denies. And of course, as he denied, America began to distrust him even more. So think about the 60s. The race riots, the civil rights movement from all groups, all minority groups, the Vietnam War, the assassination of Kennedy, the assassination of Robert Kennedy in 68, the assassination of Malcolm X, the assassination of John F. Kennedy, and people, the Pentagon Papers, and America was lying about winning the war. I mean, so all these things. And then you got Watergate that happens in 1973. Nixon ends up resigning in 1974. And it just puts America, after this last 60s and into the early 70s, politicians are sleazebags. Politicians are untrustworthy. The American government is untrustworthy. And that's the impact of Watergate. And of course, every scandal by a president now, if they throw a gate by it at the end of it, something gate, just to kind of show its symbolism to Watergate and the scandals that happened. I guess the Teapot Dome scandal was a big one in the 20s, but anyhow, I'm trying to think what else you put. So you've got um, the economy. We had touched on that. Got that. I think that's it. And Watergate. Now I'm not doing it justice. One thing about Nixon and Watergate as well is that Nixon ends up there's tapes in the White House record what the president says, and the tapes that were subpoenaed by the court were partly erased, and so that led to him looking even more guilty and more like a liar. And of course, he told America, and I must tell you that people say your president's a crook. Well, I am not a crook. And well, American people didn't believe him. And that's why Nixon resigned versus being impeached. So he resigned before he could be impeached and thrown out of office. So, anyhow, I hope that helps. Hope it was beneficial. If I forgot something, let me know and I'll send it to you. But I think that was it. So have a great night, great weekend, and I'll see you Monday or Tuesday, whatever day you tune in. And we're going to do Great Society. And then I know we're going to have a test probably next weekend sometime. So anyway, if you need anything from me, let me know. Bye.